Welcome back. It appears we're back. Micron, tech stocks. We got you covered here on Wall Street. Cory Johnson is sitting with me, Chief Market Strategist at Epistrophe Capital. And we're discussing some of the action here on Wall Street. Of course, tech stocks in focus. Micron has had some hiring trends that have also been grabbing the attention. A name like Micron, is that something you're focusing on right now? Let me just give you the stock here. I mean, it's run up from $61 to $170.
Yeah, big move.
The hiring practices are also coming into play. I don't know if you have some of the details on that, but what's the big picture here?
So I was listening to the Micron call last week. I thought the numbers were really good. Goldman Sachs didn't like them. I did. I don't give stock recommendations, but it was interesting to hear what Micron's working on, and it was interesting to hear how Micron's changing. And I got to thinking about how high bandwidth memory is different than old DRAM. Old DRAM was just RAM. It was just, they wanted to make more, they would build more factories, they'd put more through.
Yeah.
They wanted to make less, they'd try to protect their capital for the next downturn. But things are different with AI. They have much more complicated chips, these high bandwidth memory. The packaging and stacking memory on top of each other essentially as it is made is so much more complicated, but they're also much more involved in the process of designing things with their competitors, with software companies. So the very nature of the people at Micron have to change. So we went back, we did a 22-year study, retroactive study on 22 years worth of hiring at Micron to look at the kind of people they used to hire and the kind of people they hire today. And what we find is they're hiring business development people, they're hiring software people, they're hiring people to talk to the rest of the industry in ways that they never did in the past. And so what we see is a very different Micron emerging from this 22 years of hiring data, and it suggests two things, right? It suggests that the company is very different, it's culturally very different, that Sanjay Mehrotra, the CEO, has led a big cultural change there, but it also suggests a much longer cycle. We have seen for decades boom and bust in the PC industry and the chip industry. But what we're seeing now is a build-up for AI that, because of the kind of people Micron is hiring, that looks like this cycle is going to go a lot longer than we've seen in the past in DRAM.
So they're hiring business developers, they're hiring software people. What are they phasing out or doing less of?
I think what they're doing less of is focusing on themselves. They're doing less of conserving capital, right? In chips, it's always been boom and bust, and it's never been more extreme. They're spending, and they're spending big, and they're spending for long-term projects. They are spending almost 2 times their profits on CapEx in the last quarter, about 177%, as I recall.
6 months, the stock is up. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It's up almost 85%.
Yeah,
Does
fantastic
it still
run.
have room to the upside?
Certainly the business is. The stock price, I don't know. I don't own the stock, but I don't give stock advice. But we certainly see that this company believes that this cycle is going to be longer than the PC cycles. Rather than conserve cash at what looks like it might be a peak, they're spending cash right now. And that tells you Micron believes this has a long way to go. And I think you see this run in the stock as proof of that.
What about the other names in the group? So you think this one's well positioned. What about some of the other names? Which ones are well positioned?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Micron can separate itself technologically from competitors like Hynix and Samsung, because those 3 companies have been the giants in DRAM for at least a decade. And technologically, this is so complicated, and the opportunity for Micron to actually pull away, to capture market share. At the same time as we recognize post-pandemic that U.S. manufacturers want to have the ability to manufacture in the U.S. and get those chips out of the U.S., it'll be interesting to see if they can actually pull away technologically with a better product, I should say, as they grow into the U.S. and grow into this AI market.
So we were talking earlier about Western Dig and that being a top pick over at Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
Are you surprised to see that call?
Storage is interesting here. I think that what we're starting to see is people are starting to look beyond chips, right? Nvidia was the focus for 2 years. We look beyond Nvidia to other chip makers, including Micron. We see power management matter. Now we're starting to look at disk drives. We're also going to see a lot of information, I think, this week about networking. There's a big, the European Conference on Optical Communications, that's the unfortunate name of ECOC, but the ECOC conference is such a big deal in the networking space. I think we're going to see a lot of announcements in the networking space about connecting these data centers to other data centers. It's been about building data centers and then building up, scale up, and now it's going to be about scale out. And so the connection of distant data centers connecting them to each other, it's going to be a huge story over the course of the next 2 or 3 years.
You were always a fan of Microsoft, right?
No. Are you kidding me? Microsoft?
You never liked Microsoft?
The monopolist of Microsoft back in the old days?
So which names do you like? Which names have you stuck to that you really like for the last 5 years and you still like them?
So names for 5 years. Oracle's been a great name for 5 years. It's been a great name for the last year. It's a stock that I own. There are some bias that I have there. It's a company that I work with, but I think that they've done a fantastic job. I was fortunate enough to come into a few weeks ago when they had that fantastic announcement as one of my largest positions. Again, it's not stock advice. It's just good for the Johnson family. I have 4 kids in college. Thank you, Oracle. It was a good move. But they have been positioning for this moment for a long time. They've been talking about it for a long time. Wall Street, here I am, didn't believe it. But here Oracle is actually showing some results and a lot of RPOs, a lot of remaining performance obligations as promises over the long term. And they are certainly telling us that those orders are going to come through. A lot of things have to happen for those orders to come through, but Oracle's pointing the way.
You have the new Apple 17 Pro.
I do.
There
I got it last week.
I mean,
for
it's looking pretty cool there.
I know. There's the Johnson
sort of industrial looking. How do you like it thus far? Do you notice differences? Is it worth the upgrade? I like the telephoto lens. I'm getting it I'm going to get it for the camera.
The phone's pretty cool. It was a big success at Lehigh Family Weekend last weekend where I was. What's interesting about the replacement cycle, and I'm proof of this, I don't think my personal stuff matters much, but
it does. It's
what we've seen is that the replacement cycle in phones, it used to be 1 year and 2 years, is stretching out to 3, 4, 5.
Right.
That's certainly the case with me, where I just didn't see the need to upgrade. This year, my phone was kind of old, it was kind of beat up. The new one looks significantly different, not from last year's, but from what I have. And I think this upgrade cycle might have a little more behind it right now. But we'll see. Consumer spending, certainly in the U.S., has not been strong. China hasn't been great, and they're facing some issues there.
Yeah, I mean, there's over 300 million iPhone customers who have 4 years or more on their phone.
Yeah, but they might go to 5, right? So the cycle's getting longer and longer for this stuff because the product. Look, the biggest increase, the best improvement of product is from 0 to 1. Everything after that is incremental.
Yeah. Here's the 12. All right, don't be jealous.
You're due.
I also have an 8.
You're due.
Okay, I got them all.
We'll go shopping later.
Cory, great to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Best for the kids in college. Thank you for being on always. We appreciate it. Cory Johnson, Chief Market Strategy at Epistrophe Capital Research.